someone who will shape this conversation in his own way, allowing his vast experience in the field of sports to pour in. With that, ladies and gentlemen, may I please have the pleasure of inviting Mr. Robin Singh, former international cricketer, Team India, and former coach to the Mumbai cricket team, to please join us on stage. Some more energy, ladies and gentlemen, as Mr. Robin Singh joins us on stage. Please, sir. May I please invite Mr. Gurmeet Singh, Executive Director ESC, on stage to welcome Mr. Robin.
Bharat Mandapam, Hall number 3, Mezzanine. This talk is based on my 60 years of experience as a trainee, as a manager, as a supervisor.
Yes. May we also have the pleasure of inviting Mr. stage to join Mr. Robin Singh for this presentation. And I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, this would be an intriguing one. Can we have a huge round of applause for Mr. Ramasubramaniam as well, ladies and gentlemen? Quickly, everyone entering the auditorium, we would like to see how swift you are. Everyone, please quickly settle down, walk in as fast as you can and settle down. Thank you so much, everyone. Over to you, Mr. Robin and Mr. Ramasubramaniam. We're eagerly waiting to listen to you. Sure, absolutely. Can we have the AV team set up the laptop for them, please?
Okay. You want to get a mic? Yeah. Because you. Good evening, everyone. I think first of all, let me just thank Vikram for inviting me for this. I'm going to touch a little bit about sports. It's not just cricket, but I think most sports, it's sports related. And what are the issues we sort of face? How do we integrate technology with sports? Now, we've been using it for a long time, but many people don't know that. So, just to move forward, ideally, what happens in India, I'm just giving you a brief intro. Most people really don't have access to most of these things. And unfortunately, we don't really see the true talent emerging as people pan out or to play a sport, and you find a lot of people leaving the sport at an age where they should be actually pursuing it. So we sort of put together some stuff. Mr. Ramasubu and myself have worked together for almost 20 years. He has a database company, so he actually does a lot of sports. He does hockey, he does cricket, he does football, athletics. So he has a lot of information and data which has not really been used in the sporting sector. So I'll just start with the presentation, and as we go along, a lot of it is self-explanatory, but I think for us it's self-explanatory. I don't know what for you all. Yeah. Yeah. You know? Yeah. So if you look at sports across the globe, these are some of the top countries in the world, but we are actually nowhere. And when I talk about this, we talk about Olympic sports, right? So I'm not really talking about cricket. Cricket, we have gone to a different level, but I think there's a reason for that, and we can start trying to emulate some of these things. But I think if you look at sports across the globe, you know, some of the reasons for their success are quite self-explanatory. And this is a lot of research that we have done over the years, and we've sort of experienced it. And I think some of the key takeaways in this is that, you know, GDP, economic wealth, private investments, state-sponsored systems, China, Russia, they've been the leaders in sports, especially in Olympic sports. They have a very robust system at a very young age. Cultural priority. In India, we do a lot of different things. We have a lot of other things that we want to do, but there is no real focus on sports. We talk about it, but it's not really implemented beyond a certain point. And then, of course, climatic conditions. Again, that depends on where you are, right? For example, countries like, say, Kenya, you get a lot of long-distance runners because they live in high-altitude environments. So we don't use those environments. We do have a lot of different climates in India, across the globe, across India per se, but we don't really utilize it to maximum. We tend to want to go outside and emulate those things. So we have a lot going for us in India. It's how we can utilize the system better. So to me, this is probably one of the most important points. And it's really the foundation of anything, whether it be sport, whether it be education or anything else, right? Everything starts at a very, very young age, right? And that's why we say grassroots. It started in school, and that's where talent is identified. Whatever it may be, it can be music, it can be sports, it can be anything that you want. It can be poetry, it can be history, whatever. But this is the real pipeline, what we want to look at.
So just to add on a point in this, just adding to this point, the grassroots level, we as an Indian hockey team, as a senior team, went to Netherlands in 2006 for a competition, test series for hockey. Our captain, Mr. Srijesh, is the goalkeeper. So we were just half an hour before our match practice time, scheduled time. So there in the setup, they had a general practice session for the engage, like schools, kids and everything. When Srijesh went to that, we as a team went to the venue, the practice that he does at the age of senior level, competing in a senior team, the same practice is being practiced at the age of 6 and 7 in Netherlands. So there he was like very much astonished, like this is after my 15 years of experience in hockey, I came to like see all these kind of techniques. But since Netherlands, the team ranked number 1, so they have these kind of practice at the grassroots level at the age of 6 and 7. So this is what the sir wants to bring that.
If you want to add to that, if you look at football, right, and as a sport, I think football is a really good example. You take Barcelona, you take Real Madrid, you take Arsenal, you take Chelsea, you take all the top European clubs, you take Paris Saint-Germain, you take Bayern Munich, for example. All these teams across the globe have a system in place for youths, right? And they turn it into a professional model going forward. Of course, it's a very, very robust system, and they start at the age of 5. So that's the truth of the matter. So we are way behind in most sports. I guess we get to this stage in sports once we get into competition or we start playing for a national team. But to get there, we need to go through many different layers. We need to go to school competitions, we need to go through universities, etc., etc. One of the key factors for people who are playing sport, and where we lose a lot of sports people, is anything between the ages of 17 to about 22. Is when people decide whether they want to play sport or not. So the identification of what we want to do should be way much earlier, right? Now, we have different technologies that we will use. We will use sports science, we will use data. Then of course, we have to understand that as a kid is growing up, he can get injured quite easily. The bone structure is not well developed and things like that. So we need to be mindful of all these things. Examples of institutions that are really good at it are based in UK, which is Loughborough University. They have a high performance center, Australian Institute of Sport. I've seen that a lot in cricket, especially in Australian Institute of Sports and even in Loughborough. When, especially when we go across there, we visit and we see that they're way ahead. They think 10, 15 years ahead of what we are trying to do things here. So that's important to understand. This is probably one of the most critical things. Without money, you can't do anything. So we can't really pursue the sort of dreams that we want to. And we understand that because if you look at most sports in India, if you look at lawn tennis, for example, it's a very expensive sport to play. If you look at even table tennis now, to get rankings, you have to go outside and play against different oppositions. And that is so for all sports. If you take motorsports, it's a super expensive sport. People don't have the money for it. It's just to give you some examples, right? And it's not just about playing a sport. When you talk about things like injury management, staying in touch with the game, breaks, understanding how to train, diet, we need a dietitian in place, and so forth. We need funding for all these things, and we need guidance. Yeah. Infrastructure is something that is really critical in this country. We do have infrastructure, but it's not really used effectively. We have almost 6 centers inside.
Yeah, we have like more over 6 to 7 high performance centers inside. So like Bhopal, Delhi also has a SI. Everywhere they have a high performance center. And so our point is like we have a centers, but whether it has been fully utilized or we use the maximum technology and all those things of that's the point.
I think importantly is when we set up these centers, it's to understand where we're setting up the centers. So you need to set up in hot climate, you need to set up in cold conditions, in really good conditions, extreme conditions. We need to replicate what we are going to do on an international stage. I'm not too sure that is done. I can't really say for sure, but at the end of the day, the technology that is there has to be used. We can bring in any amount of technology, but we have to have the capability of using the technology. So we have to be able to educate people as well, along with the infrastructure that is necessary for the development of sport. Yeah. So these are some of the things that we use, right, in sports science to assist us. These are all tools that we use to help us, assist us to get better. So biomechanics, use it a lot. I don't know how many of you have ever seen how it is done, but for example, if I take cricket as an example, right? Very recently I was involved with the Tamil Nadu Cricket Association. I was consulting for them, and we had some people with faulty actions, people at young age who are the potential. So we try to understand what they're capable of at a very young age. So there are so many data points that you can actually get from the information that you have the sensors that are placed on each one's body, and it literally gives you like the next step and the next step and the next step. It allows you to prepare an athlete going forward. It also helps you to sort of put an athlete on track if he has an issue or an injury, that they may be able to foresee an injury that will happen much earlier than one would actually see in real time.
Just to add on this regarding the biomechanics, so for recent for Mr. Neeraj Chopra, our javelin thrower as well. So the most of the biomechanics has been like practiced within Bhopal Sai as well. So they did all the motion analysis as well, all the biomechanics, what is the release, what is the thrust that he is able to beat on the release point. Earlier he had some minor flaws, so then after doing a proper biomechanics, then he got his shoulder alignment, everything perfect. His wrist position alignment was like bit angling 45. So then they changed all these things by the using of biomechanic techniques. His run up, so everything was changed according to his power and his genetical and everything. We have used this biomechanics pattern to uplift his performance.
We use a lot of GPS tracking systems now in cricket. You see a lot of cricketers wearing it. If you take football, is a stunning example where they use it a lot. They understand what is your threshold, what is your max. The moment you reach to a particular point, they pull you out. How many of you follow football here? Anybody? Okay, some of you. Now if you look at the way they use substitutes in football now, it's not like the way it was in the past. There is enough and more information and data on every single player that is on that field. And you know fully well at what point his performance level will dip. There's a peak performance and it starts dipping. So you find that a lot of changes are made anything between the 75th to the end of the game. And you see, if you take the stats and the details and the data, a lot of goals are scored in the 90th minute, the 89th minute, the 92nd minute, because they bring on fresh people. It's like, to give you a simple example, it's like having a car that's going for 20 miles and you're having a new car with a slightly better engine at that point in time, and you overtake that person, literally speaking. So basically you bring in people who can actually accelerate and they actually geared up for the same position that whoever comes off. So basically when you build a team, I'm not building one person, I'm building 3 people who can do the same role for me. Maybe they will have different capabilities, but ideally we build them for what we want to achieve when we actually do a replacement. Now, if you take hockey, another example, he has done hockey quite a lot, so he'll be able to tell you in a much more greater detail.
Yeah, I'll give you a small example. When we were doing 2012 Olympics in London, before that, so we have a rotation basis in hockey. There's no limitation of substitutions. Earlier in 90s we had it, so the modern game all changed. So there's no limitation of substitution in hockey. So when we competed, before we had a qualifiers here in Delhi only. Before that, when we don't have an analysis, all those stuff at all. So we thought like our main player should always play for the whole game. So we kept the same pattern of doing like we should not lose our main players, they should not sit outside. But after the games gets over, we thought of seeing the other teams like Australia, Netherlands, they had every 3-4 minutes of changing the substitutes. And they want to exhaust the entire energy and they want to get a fresh legs for the 6th minute and 7th minute. So after we got after doing all the analytics and GPS, then Sai brought GPS technology with Hockey India. So then we tracked all when our players are able to give their best. How long are they able to give their maximum potential? How long are they able to have their fitness level? So what we did is like next, we didn't qualify for we ended up with position 11 or 12 in the 2012. So next Olympics we followed the same pattern. It's not like following. So we had a different setup. So we had the maximum number of substitute changes. So then we almost won the Asia Cup also that year. In next 3 years, then nowadays we can see the Indian women's hockey and men's team. Next to Australia or nearing Australia, now hockey Indian men is like they got bronze also last year, last Olympics as well. So if you see the overall number of the data analytics, we have the more substitution changes. The thing is like we want to utilize the most players' best potential fitness and tactics as well. So that's what is all GPS technology is for.
And we talk about recovery, right? So like anybody here, right? I don't think you can concentrate for 12 hours a day. I question that quite a lot. Our maximum concentration is only to a particular point, right? We need to take breaks. A lot of people feel that I need to sit and I can get the maximum output if I sit for 5 hours, 10 hours, 15 hours. I think it's all specifically related to what you're doing. But ultimately, you get tired of here. Eventually, you get tired. And the moment that happens, I think your performance drops very drastically. Physically as well is something that affects you when you actually, let's say playing in Chennai. How many of you have been to Chennai? How many of you understand how hot it is and how humid it is in May? Extremely humid, right? And most people would complain. Now, either you can use it as an advantage or you can use it as a disadvantage. It's up to you. So, ideally, when we play in Chennai, and I'll just give you a simple analogy or a simple thing that I used to do when we were playing in Chennai. We used to love to bat first in Chennai, simply because if it's very hot, it's very difficult to concentrate beyond a certain point. A lot of people get lazy just after lunch, right? And especially when you eat. And a lot of people love to eat when they play. I am someone who has to hardly eat. And one of the key things that I took from that is that every time I'm batting, if I'm batting at that point in time, I would make the opponents run on the ground. And they would be super tired. And that's when you can actually take control of the game. But you need to prepare yourself for that. So that is one aspect of it. But you have to train in that heat in a similar manner so that you won't get tired. So just to give you an example. But recovery becomes very important. And sleep is one of the most important things, if not the most. Yeah. Yeah. So this is pretty self-explanatory. You find a lot of athletes, depending on where they are, genetically, they're very good. You find a lot of really good athletes in the Caribbean. That also has to do with your muscle type and your lifestyle. Similarly with Kenya, which is high altitude, so they have the lung power is very, very good at a very young age. So that's what we mean by, climate, your environment becomes a critical aspect. So to compete with these guys, you have to really prepare way different. These are all things that should be given or should be available to anyone. Otherwise, it's not possible, right? I'd like to stress a little bit on rehab, right? Because most people don't know where to go. If you talk to a common man today, leave alone anybody else, he really don't know who is the best person to go to. And you have all types of injuries. It's not like you have just one common injury. If you take an amalgamation of about 15 sports, if you take, say, cricket for example, you get a lot of rotator cuff injuries, you get a lot of hamstring injuries. Not so much hamstring, you do get hamstring. Sometimes you get ankle, the fast bowlers, because you land a lot. It's almost like 8 to 9 times your body weight when you bowl fast, when you land and you hit the ground. Different surfaces. You take football, hamstring injuries are quite common, very common. A lot of head injuries because people head the ball. If you take hockey, probably one of the most dangerous sports. Get hit very badly. You can tell you very badly in hockey. If you go on the wrong side of the stick, people can get aggressive with the stick. It's not like you're two people fighting. Then you have boxing, so many other sports. Right? So you need to have a really good team of people who can help you rehab, get back in shape, and we need centers for that. We need specialized centers for that, which is not really available. Most people, most of the top sports people today in India, I can name at least 15, 20 who I know, do not do their treatments in India, which is pretty sad, considering that we have some of the best doctors here, we have some of the best capabilities here, but we still prefer to go outside because we don't have the facilities. It's not just the facilities, it's about the follow-up facilities that are critical. Right? You don't go and do a rehab, get an operation. What about the next 2 months? How do you rehab? How do you get better? You have to train twice as hard to mentally get back in check. Because you can only test yourself when this is okay. If this is not okay, your mind is not okay, and you're always thinking about this injury, you can never focus on actually what is the real goal going forward. Yeah. Coaching, very critical. We don't have enough people at the high level, and we need to keep on upgrading ourselves. And what is critical in any sport is I need to be able to trust the coach. If I can't trust the coach, it's like no chance. I will not listen to him. He is of no use to me. I will be asking somebody else outside who really will not know what's going on, right? So if you take cricket as an example, right? We here, I guess some of you may or may not follow cricket, I don't know, I don't assume. But everyone gives you a pitch report. How many of you know what's a pitch report here? Right? But do you know that most people are only guessing? They really don't know, because you're not allowed to go on the pitch, first of all. The second thing is, it's one of the few sports where you're not allowed to play on this area till you actually play the match. But everyone comes and gives an expert comment. Now, how can I know the hardness of that surface? How can I know how much preparation has gone into it? How can I know what is the climate, right? Over a period of 2 days and 3 days. You don't prepare a pitch overnight. It takes you 5 days. How much rolling is done? What is the weight of the roller? What is the soil? What is the type of soil? What grass do you plant? 1001 factors you can look at, right? But unfortunately, we listen to a lot of people give us, and it's only a perception based on data and information that is there. So, as I said, these are things that are pretty self-explanatory. I think it's critical in any system for it to grow. Keep going. Yeah. To me, this is very critical, right? What do people do after they play sport? If you come from a family where it's not a sporting family and you want to play a sport, I think first thing they will be thinking about what happens after sport. What happens if you get injured while you're pursuing that sport? What if you can't play? Who is going to take care of you, etc., etc. There's no end to the questions, right? But everything is a chance, right? And for us to convince people to play a sport, first of all, you need to be convinced that you want to do the sport, right? That's why the grassroots system again comes back into play. People have to encourage you to play the sport. The talent has to be there. But it is very important to understand that after you play a sport, right? After you finish playing a sport, what do you do? If I take on a scale of, say, if I put 100 people, different types of sports, right? I think maybe 85 or 90 people will be struggling, to be honest, to cope up with the inflation and the standard of living that they would want to expect going forward. So that's a pretty sad thing. So that is something that really needs to be looked into, right? This, without competition, you cannot grow. You don't know where you stand. We can compete in our own environments and think we are good, but when we go outside, we realize that we are at the bottom of the list here. So, it varies according to the sport and the competition and what is the relevance of what we want to achieve. Yeah. Keep going. These are things we spoke about, right? So he does a lot, so I'll just let him take this.
So these are like data analytics where you can see our modern cricket. If you take an example of our Indian cricket as well, hockey, whatever it is. So now earlier it was like normal thing going on. Now it's all data driven thing. Who's the right combination for the team? Who's the right combination for which condition? So all these patterns, because we have a data of 15-20 years of around the world cricket, we have informations. We have each and every type of single woman's shot types. What is he vulnerable at? What is his strength at? What is his best performance in which kind of conditions? Which kind of pitches? All those things. So we use all those dashboards. We have all each and, for example, which player is best in power play? Whether his boundary hitting is good or his rotation of runs is better. So we categorize the players according to the condition and to the phase of the game as well. So KPI tracking is like that is what a ball by ball each and every. For example, one single ball, you see only a ball as a ball. For us, when we collect the data, we have like what is the shot type, in shot type whether he played a comfortable shot or not. So how many frequent times he's able to face a particular different type of bowlers, in which venue he's able to score much better, which kind of soil he used to prefer to score better. So like these kind of KPIs we have a detailed thing, and which type of bowler he is very much comfortable. Left-hand batsman, whether he is comfortable with the off spinner, in which speed if he bowls is more comfortable. Like that we have like massive ball by ball data, and with those KPIs we filter down the data and we choose the right combination for the tournament and competition. So all these are evidence based, like we have collected all these things, and during the tournaments for all the national teams in the meeting, these all data play a vital role for selections, also for the performance. Everything data plays a key vital role in the current situation in all sports.
So, more importantly, these are some of the key takeaways, right? You need to have talent. You need to have a culture in sports. Without a sporting culture, it's like a tech culture, right? So we try to create that environment. It's about creating the right environment for what you want to do. So it encourages people to go to the next level. You need to have a system in place. You need to use technology and science to assist what we're doing. And I keep saying again, we need funding. Right? And we need lots of funding, and it has to be channeled in the right place. That is most critical. It has, and accountability is very, very critical when you use the funding, right? It has to be channeled, it has to be filtered, right? So one of the key elements, right, for all this to happen is to have a really good scouting group. So scouting can be talent, it can be from a cultural perspective, it can understand the system well. From a technology perspective, from a science perspective, we have to combine all these things. If one or two or any of these are not available to you, you never get the true benefit of what we want to achieve. Alright? I'll just do one more small presentation to complement what we are trying to do, right? Because we did speak about technology and AI, and just to give you all a small insight of what are the things that we look for. Hello? So basically what we are trying to do as we keep going forward is we want to create something, we call it a digital athlete. That's our terminology. Alright? But it's not a computer athlete, okay? So don't get fooled by the word. Yeah. So we spoke about all these things, right? We spoke about real-time biometrics monitoring. So these are all things that are used to track everything that we want in the system. Genetic profiling is very critical because we can identify a lot of things at a very, very young age. So, or gene testing, right? You can check whether people have, it's for anything as a matter of fact. There's no limit to testing. But for us, we look at things like the VO max of someone. You want to change that?
Yeah, I'll just brief about this biometric monitoring, the wearable devices and the sensors. Right now in the current era, all sports, for example, you can see all the players will be using like devices, like IoT device like Whoop, Fitbit. So what we do is like, whenever they have the whole day has been monitored by the coaches, the SNC team, the physiotherapists and everyone. So we have the, we input and take the data from all the players. So we as a team, how long he has taken his, what is his recovery level overall. So we also take the data of their sleep level, what is their hydration level. And if there is anything prone about to that, if it is beyond the benchmark, so it automatically gives an alert to our coaches and also to our SNC team. So that the SNC and the physiotherapist will be aware like that this player is like over-exhausted yesterday's practice or all those things. So they will either give a rest or they will plan their workout according to the next session. So these kind of sensors are recently like been used by most of the sports right now. You can see Virat and all the players who nowadays Whoop is one of the brand that is being used by one of the sensors that has been successfully used by all the cricketers and other sporting athletes.
So most of this actually, it's related to any sport that you want, right? It depends on what type of sport, whether it is a skill-based sport, or whether it is a power sport, whether it's an endurance sport, etc. So these are some of the things we look at for the muscle profiling. So a lot of athletes have fast twitch, slow twitch muscles and stuff, right? So ones who are explosive, ones who are not, endurance type, etc., etc. We spoke about VO max. That has a lot to do with endurance, running, right? For a lot of long distance sports. Same thing with mental modeling. So things like stress levels when you play the sport, psychologically, what happens, injury risk. So a lot of people are injury prone, right, when they play a sport, and you wonder why. So it's genetic to a large extent. It's how do we prevent that more than anything else. So these are all pipelines, as we said. Yeah. So we can adapt, the coaches can adapt, we can predict, we can sort of create a situation where we have the same scenario 15, 20 times to understand what someone can do and try to improve on those things. Keep going. This is what we try to get out of the entire information, right? So that once we do all this profiling with competition, etc., we actually prepare a program for that particular athlete. That's what he's talking about at the end of the day. That gives you a real-time sense of success to a large extent, and it's compared to other athletes across the globe at a similar level. And that's what we think in the end. Thank you.
Check. Thank you so much for such a clear and structured perspective on integrating technology with sports. What stands out is how performance in sports is being shaped with intent through systems that are thought through, built over time, and supported by the right use of technology. You highlighted certain key pillars why certain countries continue to excel, and at the core, it is strong grassroots and talent identification, and building on that, the ecosystem is further strengthened by culture, the icing on the cake. Thank you so much, Mr. Robin and Mr. Ramasubramaniam, for the direction that you've given everyone in the room here. We'll just take a minute as we get started with this discussion. So, ladies and gentlemen, building on these perspectives that have just been shared, we now take the conversation a step forward and invite a few more voices to join this discussion. May I please invite Mr. Gurmeet Singh, Executive Director, ESC. Okay, he'll be joining us soon. May I please also have the pleasure of inviting Mr. Veer Sagar, Chairman, ESC. And yes, Mr. Rama, please be on stage with us. Thank you so much. May we also please invite on stage RJ Satvik. Some more noise for RJ Satvik. RJ in the room, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, looking forward to this discussion, gentlemen.
All right, good evening. Wow, it really works. Right. So, thank you so much. So it was indeed insightful, and if I talk about the combination of tech and sports, first of all, I would request all of you to put your hand together for that amazing interactive session, everybody. I just have small, few very curious questions. I was just listening to you very, very carefully, and I just wanted to know that if you talk about data analytics, right, you mentioned too much about data analytics, right? Robin, if you had the access to today's data tools back then, what aspects of your game would have changed?
I think many things.
Like what?
And just think that I think the way I trained, even though I trained pretty robustly, but I think I probably would have trained smarter, for sure. The use of technology in terms of technically looking at what you can do and improving. It gives you a better chance of succeeding in really tough conditions. Of course, the sport has changed today to a large extent. I don't think I would have changed the aggression at which I played the sport. So that is something that has always been there. So these things I think would have complemented what we are doing. I think probably training better in different conditions. Now we actually had, for most cases, we were actually our own coaches, and we would actually ask people to help us. So I had a very simple way of operating, right? I never used to read a newspaper because my philosophy was very simple. If I read a paper, and you do well, what's the point reading it? Anyway, they're going to write well about you, right? So when you read a paper, if you do badly, you know they're going to write badly. So it doesn't really matter to me. So importantly, that is something I took away. So from a social media perspective, I think I would actually keep that aside to a large extent, right? I wouldn't really look into it too much, because at the end of the day, with what is happening here, with everything that's available, I think it's important to understand what you want to achieve and how you can help you. What is really important, I think, is to get the truth. And if you read between the lines and you see what's going on, you'll be able to decipher. So, you know, I don't know how many of you remember, but when we were playing, there used to be a big screen available. So sometimes you'll play and there will be a big screen. Our way of learning in those days, it was actually to get information from people who had played, who were much elder to us, who we looked up to. And that's really the truth of the matter. And I think we took that to heart. We took it in good stead, so that we can actually improve our games and try to implement those things. But yeah, I think there's a lot available today that you can actually change. Technology, the way you train, equipments, diet, information from coaches, information from people across the globe, understanding what works in different conditions. So you actually save time.
From all the factors that you mentioned, I was also, my mind stuck to funding, right? That is one of the most important factors. How do you see that? Okay, now there can be two situations. A, we have sufficient funding, which is not usually the case. B, we do not have sufficient funding. How do you, what would you like to give out, a message maybe to the people who are playing the sport that, okay, you don't have funding, now what?
I think first thing is, in sport, when you play a sport, you have to have the passion to play a sport. Otherwise, there is no point looking at it, because at some point you will give up, right? If the first thing you think about is money. So I think first we need to get that right. So that you need to do at grassroots. You need to do that in school. And you need to make people understand that it's critical to enjoy a sport, to make friends, right? To learn to fail, not to win. Winning is, yes, you win, but you learn more when you fail, right? To be in an environment that's competitive. So when it's a competitive environment, you start pushing yourself, because you don't know how much you can push yourself, right? So really and truly, you test yourself only with people who are better than you. There is no point playing with people who are less than you all the time. You don't really step up to a large extent. Or you have to move away from that competition. That's why we go outside and play, and we are tested in different environments. But when you have funding, you can replicate a lot of the things that I'm saying, but it's really not the same, right? So funding brings a lot of different things. It can also create a situation where you can get into a situation where I'm only looking to play for money, and I forget that, hey, hang on a sec, I have no friends around me. But you know, you don't play sport without friends, because I can't play cricket without the next 10, 11 guys around me. I cannot succeed. It's not an individual sport, however much you may say so, right? Virat Kohli might get 100, but he needs the other guy to run his runs, right? So you really are dependent on somebody else to a large extent. You have to trust people to a large extent. So funding is important, but it's also not the only thing that is important. So let's get that very clear. As you get into a stage where you want to make it a career, yes, it's important to look at how do I achieve certain things. Funding, when you get funding, it has to be channeled in the right place, in my opinion. There have to be committees of people looking after those things. Because you find as players, we don't look into the administrative aspect or the commercial aspect of things when an organization is run.
That says it all. You also mentioned about genetical strengths, right? You mentioned some geographical locations as well. I would love to know that what do you think is the genetical strength of the Indian sports person?
I think we have a lot going for us in India. It is so huge a place, so you have to look at each place differently. If you look at Bangalore, it's above sea level, right? So you can get good athletes there, right? If you look at the northern part of India, you can get really good athletes there. Lung power, they are also quite strong, right? You get a lot of fast bowlers in the north. If you see in the past, we got a lot of swing bowlers in the north because climatically, the conditions would assist swing, right? In the south, you'd find that because it's so hot, beyond the point, you don't want to bowl fast. So you tend to want to bowl spin, you learn to play spin, etc., etc. You have good boxers. In the east, right? You have some weightlifters in the south, right? South, there are a lot of good weightlifters. So I think we have a lot. Kerala, you have a lot of good athletes, right? Again, I would say it's genetic to a large extent, right? If you look at people in Kerala, again, you look. If I take today's generation of people and I compare it to, say, 30 years ago, right? And I can say 30 years ago, we did a lot more on foot as opposed to machine. Right? A lot of people walk to school. Basic things that you go and do today in a gymnasium, you actually would do naturally. Right? So you don't play, like if you take cricket, people train in the gym, right? Just to give you a small example. A lot of people go to a gym to train. Why? Because they feel it's easy they save time. It's easy, everything is nice and cozy, I don't have to exert. But you know what, when you're in real competition, you have to exert. It's real time. You're facing the music with everyone around you, noise in your ear, right? If it's very hot, what do you do? So I think it's okay to a point, but I think you need to get out. You need to get out and train in a very natural environment. For me, that is the first thing. Going inside is second option. It's not first option. So, ideally, if you want to excel, I think you need to experience sport to a large extent. Now, if you look at the way people work today, for example, we'll work the whole day and then we will go and train in the gym in the night. Do you really like doing that? You do it because I'm doing it. But when you like something, you do it with a lot of passion, with a lot of emotion. That's very important when you do it. Right? You don't just do it because it's a routine and I have to look after my health. So we need to have a very natural way to doing things to a large extent. Use technology, as I said, use everything else that I spoke about over there to enhance what we are doing to performances. Get experience outside. Test yourself outside. Go into competition outside. We have everything available in India. It's how do we put it together, right? I said we need to have centers across India. We need to have very, very important is people who are connected to the different fields so that they're experts in those fields so you can trust them. Athletes in India need to trust the people in the system. Do they trust the people in the system? To me, that is one of the most key factors when you play a sport. If I am coaching today, if I cannot win the trust of the player, I cannot get through to him. It's as simple as that. What I am telling him is a waste of time.
Right. Would love to hear your thoughts as well, Mr. Ramasubramaniam, on the same.
First point which I was able to brief you about those things were like the modern data which you are asked. So likewise, earlier days, because I've been doing this technology part right from 95, 2000 till 25. So earlier days when Sir's era, they don't have like that much smarter enough data to. For nowadays, any player that we have, we will give a very simple 5-10 minutes of videos like cracking all their uncomforts, beatens, what is their main areas, who's the right matchup bowlers. So all these things has given up, gave a good solution for the cricketers and to reduce their time, prepare themselves very easily. So early days, I think Sir Saruda can accept this. Those days they didn't have those facilities and other things. Our biomechanics was very, very less. And nowadays we have for each and everything. For throwing techniques also we have all the biomechanics that has been placed, bowling, batting, and before we play a match we do entire data reports, how venue analysis will happen. So in in power play 1 to 6, what is the exact benchmark for in this ground? What will be, except the temperature and humidity, we cannot guess that. Rest, most of the inputs will be like spoon-feeded for the players and the coaches. They have enough data to plan around. So that was the first point which I want to mention you that. And what was the last one that you asked? Yes, third one, last one.
The strength of the Indian sports.
Indian sports person, regarding the regions, we have even while we did it in hockey. I'll tell you that regarding the hockey, not people to cricket. I'll go to the hockey. So we found a particular regions like Haryana, Northeast especially. We found like more of athletes coming to that from these regions based on the conditions and all these things. We found a lot of, we scouted a lot. Sai gave us an opportunity to go around the states. So we went to 6 to 7 centers. We had open trials and everything. Whenever we found like a team in states like Haryana, Bangalore, and Northeast, like Manipur, those places were very effective for our sport of hockey. So they had their lungs pumping was very good. They're able to have their fitness level very much ahead of other state players. So if you can see, it's not like saying any other states particularly around like Tamil Nadu or South, like Hyderabad. We hardly have 1 or 2 in the probables, not in the playing, in the probables. It's only one or 2 exceptional players comes from that side. But when we found like these kind of regions, we were able to like collect more number of players. So with this fitness level, as a coaches, what we do is like we transfer the skill as well. So where we were lacking was like comparing with the elite teams like Netherlands, New Zealand, they had a high fitness level. So after a point of time, what we thought is like we first scout the players who has the good fitness level. So we picked them, then we added the skill, then we started training the skills, and then we brought the technique together. So this took 2-3 years to build an entire ecosystem of a hockey, women's hockey. If you can see, if you see from 2004 to 2006, that we are all these 3-4 years. Our Indian Hockey India has invested their entire time for scouting. They had enough time. Then they came to the real competition mode, and now we can see we are competing all the elite teams. Last 3 Olympics we are almost in all the, earlier before 2004 we are not in Olympics, we didn't participate also. So these were the things how we scouted regarding the regions as well and other points.
Got it. Please.
Thank you first of all for accepting our invitation and gracing this occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, the history will remember Robin as one of the fittest cricketer India has ever produced. Correct? And the second big credit to Robin. What did it take Robin to become Robinson? You have played with Sachin Tendulkar, you have played with Ajay Jadeja, you have played so many greats. But what did make you to become Robinson?
I think that's the reason. That's a pretty simple question to answer. You have to first actually trust yourself. You have to have your own self-belief. You have to put in the work. If you remember, I don't know how many if you remember, but I was not really born here. So I was actually born in Trinidad. So we had a different approach to playing sport. Sport was literally taken as a sport. It was never considered a profession. And so it is all about playing for a team, as far as I'm concerned. And that's how I actually grew up playing a sport. And I think it comes from environment. I think I spoke about it earlier. Right? It comes from the environment and the people who surround you. And I think what happens when you're in that environment, when you have a lot of support and people think you have some talent, you don't want to let them down. So I created my own style. I didn't really want to change that. So I think along the way you have to trust that. And then you have to recognize along the way, is this going to work or not? Because you have to be consistent with what you're doing. You have to be a performer more than anything else. That is very critical. And more importantly, you have to be a performer when the pressure is on. Right? A lot of people perform, but when the pressure is on, you need to perform. You need to deliver. And importantly, when I played for India, right, my only thing in my mind was, can I win a game from here? It was never about stats. It was never about my personal achievements. Because for me, the highest honor was to play for India. Nothing else. Nothing else mattered. Right? So you have to be yourself. And I think I played with Sachin. I remember once I was struggling a little bit with what I wanted to do. And he came up and he said, you know what? Just do what you know. He did not even give me more advice than that. Because actually in simple words he was saying, trust yourself, without saying it. Yes, sir. You can ask.
Okay. Now I'm going to turn the equation on its head. In your presentation you talked about grassroots talents.
Yes, sir.
Now I am saying that the only way we can use grassroots talents and government money is to turn the entire cricketing thing on its head. Then don't look at it as a game. Look as a means for job creation. Skilling in cricket for job creation. Today, not many people will play cricket because, as you said, what happens afterwards? So if you are looking at cricket as a job, and today there are so many opportunities, these local leagues, every city almost has got a league, at least one. Then there are some 39 cities playing Ranji Trophy or BCC tournaments. So if you get all that, you can easily make 1 lakh a month just playing this middle level cricket. No IPL, no test. And for that, you need to have a little thing of talent scouting in the tier 2, tier 3 cities. For that, we need to create a database of skills. Now, how do you create database of skills? You need to capture skills of people playing cricket at that level. Now, there are, unfortunately in India, even finals of the Ranji Trophy not telecast. So what you need to have is a very cheap level of telecasting all these club crickets played all over India and create a database from there. Extract the games and make a database. That's one. Secondly, you have, I think, 1 coach per 1,000 players today in India or some absurd level like that. You need many more coaches. You don't have coaches. A. B. None of these coaches will go to a small town to coach. So you need to use technology to create long distance remote coaching online. So we've actually designed, when I'm saying this, I've actually designed both. So we do live telecasting of club cricket. In fact, this whole thing is being telecast by the same team that will telecast club cricket, where we have 2 cameras, right? 1 fixed camera and 1 ball tracking camera. We have scoring, we have commentary, and pushed we can do limited DRS. And this costs 5,000 to 8,000 rupees to show a match. And this we keep, and we draw from it skills, the games, highlights, etc. Then we have a system by which a person can coach online a person in a different city. However, if you don't want to coach online because you are not available at the coaching time, then the entire coaching can be recorded on the app, and in the evening or any appropriate time, both of them come online. They see the recording of the coaching of the player behind, and the coach can stop and show him the mistakes, training. Then what happens is from here you again draw. Then coaches in bigger cities can say, oh, these kids in this small town have potential. Then you move them to bigger cities or to. Similarly, you want to look talent scout. You talked about talent scout getting thing. Now talent scouts now have a much bigger area, catchment area to see. And this, I think, has to look at, once you have this, everybody gets access to coaching. And as far as government is concerned, government is spending a lot of money on job creation for mechanics, for carpenters, etc., or for programmers, even for IT and AI. I'm saying, spend on these guys. They have just passed class 6, class 7 in small towns where they're not able to see more, and you can create at least jobs for them. They may not be world-beating athletes in a start with, but once you grow from here, the cream will rise. And when you have this huge mass of Indian population getting into the system, into the database, then you pick up and put them through this wonderful system that you have designed.
So, can I answer some of your questions?
No, I'm not asking a question. I just made a suggestion. Because you are a well-known personality, I wanted your views. Okay, is this something nice or something dreamy?
So he has a lot of scouting things that he does. But I'll just give you an overview of what has happened in cricket from 1985 onwards, because I came to this country in 1985. In 1985 in India, in Chennai, we had only one turf cricket. Only one. Now, international cricket was supposed to be played on turf, on natural turf, not on concrete, not on mat. But we grew up playing on sand, concrete, mostly sand, koya mats, etc. It's a good learning process, mind you, whether we like it or not, but it's actually a good learning process for certain conditions. And I will tell you why I'm saying certain conditions. Right? It's a good learning process for playing in Australia, when you could play on matting. Right? Because we do not have surfaces that are as hard as what you encounter in Australia, number one. Number two, if you look at the system in India, there was no money in the sport. So the sport was supported. The sport was supported by organizations across India. Right? And it's still done. It is still a lot in Chennai, more than any other city in India. So you had Steel Authority of India, you had Tatas, you had Maffatlal. These were the big organizations that supported. You had a lot of the institutions like banks. You had State Bank of All India State Bank. They still do. But what has happened is nobody can grow beyond a certain point. Right? So every one of the companies today who are engaging people to play a sport and supporting talented sports people at a very young age, even before they come out of school and university, right? They are actually employed. You'll be surprised, right? They are employed in the state of Chennai. Similarly with all the smaller districts. Now, I can give you an example of Tamil Nadu districts, but I'll go on further. Now, after 1985 onwards, right, the sport grew. We won World Cup in 83, but we didn't do much. We started winning, maybe getting better on the international stage. But we started competing a lot more when I came into the system. But we had a lot of really good teams, but still we didn't have enough support systems. We didn't have technology. We hardly used technology when I was playing. We hardly had a coach on board when I was playing. I mean, I remember the late Anshuman Gaikwad was there, but there was no other. We did not have a doctor to travel with us. I don't know how many of you knew, but when we were playing cricket, we used to hardly get 1,000 rupees a day. 1,000 rupees a day. If you go to university, when we played university cricket, we were getting 3 rupees a day. Yes. So it's not like there was money in the sport, but people had the persistence in the sport because they had the passion for the sport. Then, the moment you start winning, I think things really changed when IPL came along. Right? If you look at, and I say that very confidently because we would go to Australia once in 7 years to play Australia. Australia didn't want to play India. We would go to West Indies once in 10 years. They did not want to play India because India was not a country where you can make money. Right? Our currency was low. Suddenly when we won World Cup in 2007, T20 World Cup, it was a bilateral. Every year we were playing each other. Right? The money came into the system. It's only when people intervene, the administration intervene into ICC and say, okay, this is the place where the money is, right? And it's grown. So whether people like IPL or not, but it's actually elevated all the other sports. It has created an entire ecosystem, cricket. It's not just for cricketers, for people who are in marketing, advertising, the hotel industry, the food industry, you name it, available. Data. He has a company, many companies, computer companies. There's so many other small things. People who make clothing. I can name 1,001 things are available today. Everything becomes a job. Social media, etc., etc. So I think cricket has created that ecosystem and it's given people an opportunity to open their eyes. It's not just about cricket, but it's about the ecosystem around it that it has created. Talent scouting is being done in a large scale now. To tell you, it's being done on a very large scale by all the franchises. Now, if I give you an example of how I treat an IPL tournament, if I am a young cricketer, and I've explained this to a young cricketer, if I am a young cricketer and I'm exposed to playing IPL and I don't play a single game, I treat that 2 months as a high-profile performance training camp. Right? That's the way you need to treat it. I need to tell myself, I'm lucky to be here. How can I utilize this to take my cricket to the next level? Because when I get the next opportunity, I need to be 3 steps ahead of somebody else. I need to gather all the information from others. So, I mean, look, to answer some of your questions, a lot of it is available today. Associations are doing that. Everywhere their leagues come up, and so forth. So it's really critical to do that. He does a lot of scouting.
The role of technology in sports. And thank you, RJ Satvik, for your thoughtful questions. What was clearly highlighted was your attention to detail. Thank you so much. And we'd also like to thank Mr. Veer Sagar. Your presence is always valuable. May I please request Mr. Veer Sagar, Chairman ESE, to step forward and felicitate all our speakers. We recognize the contribution of Mr. Robin. Mr. Robin, requesting you to please step forward. We really appreciate your time and presence. Mr. Rama, we request you to please step forward to accept this token of appreciation. And finally, RJ Satvik, requesting you to please come forward. Can we all also pose for a group picture, please? Thank you so much, gentlemen, and a special thank you to Mr. Robin for his time and presence. Ladies and gentlemen, all of you out there, some energy with your round of applause. I want to see that energy now for Mr. Robin. Yes, we can hoot. Thank you so much, Mr. Robin. With that, yes, we are calling it a day. We've already got up, signaling, please stop, Harshita. And yes, I am signing off as your MC. See you all tomorrow at 10 a.m. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.